Welcome back to the Real Deal podcast. I'm Sarah Willis, and I'm also here with my fabulous business partner,
Suzanne Moore. Hi, everybody. Great to be back. This time we're going to talk about a pretty big headline in the news that I'm sure got picked up by all of the news outlets, national news outlets, which is that home sales have dropped to their lowest level in nearly 2 years. And that's a headline that grabs attention. So we wanted to talk about this article in the broader context of the national real estate market, and then also in the context of what we're seeing on the ground in Bend, Oregon, and Central Oregon as well.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit of a funny headline because when you start to read the details, I mean, it's really only down by 2.5%, right? Which isn't a huge number, but it's definitely attention grabbing. And I also think we're feeling it here in Central Oregon as well. And according to this article, the two main areas that are driving this are Texas and as a broader state, and then Seattle as a bigger metropolitan city in Washington, the state of Washington. And what's interesting is we see a lot of people who relocate or are looking for second homes and investment properties from those areas. And maybe that's one of the reasons we're feeling a little bit of a pinch right now here in the middle of the summer and slower times. But what's also odd is, like, I would say the third, most popular place for us to see remote, or new clients come from is the Bay Area. And they're still popping. They're still doing all right.
Yeah. And that's interesting that you say poppin', Sarah, because I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine the other day who asked me point blank, hey, my Instagram algorithm and the feed is full of predictions of a housing market crash. And he was like, what do you think? When's it going to happen? And I said, really, there's one place where I do feel like there is a bubble, and that is the Bay Area. And that is driven primarily by the overvaluation or high valuation of all of the stocks and all of the new IPOs that are happening there, to the point that people are offering massive amounts over asking, and these are like multi-million-dollar houses that people are offering, hundreds of thousands, even millions over asking. So it is an absolute frenzy in San Francisco right now. And so I do feel like if there's going to be anything that pops, that is what it could be. But that is very centralized to that particular location, although we all know that has a ripple effect everywhere, right? So that's also affecting our stock market and, why things keep going up despite the fact that we're in a war and gas prices are high and people are spending more money now than they ever have before. So there's a lot of things happening for sure on the macro level. And, to answer that question of like, when's the next crash? My perspective is so many of us remember the last one, right? But that doesn't mean that another one is imminent. And what will happen before anything like that ever happens is that the Fed will lower interest rates first to essentially like stimulate home buying, stimulate the economy if the economy starts to go down. And we have seen some poor job numbers in the recent reports that have come out. And it's funny, we were talking to our lender friend a couple weeks ago, and he was like, yeah, we're getting really great news for lending, which is the inverse. Good news for lending means rates go down, which means the economy is going down, like jobs are going down, right? And that's what's driving this decline of home sales in Seattle is layoffs in the tech sector, with Microsoft and Amazon being replaced in many places, I believe, by AI.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that, just because I think about places like the Bay Area and what a great influx of people we have coming from that area to Central Oregon, whether that's moving for primary residence or just buying second homes or investment properties. But I would say that demographic, and also to a large degree clients that we serve and people coming into Central Oregon, are less sensitive to home prices and costs, right? And so I think Bend is one of those interesting areas that where maybe nationally things are taking steeper dips and dives. What I think we've seen here is really just things kind of remaining flat, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
that's what we talked about with market stats for July. If you follow us and you watch some of our videos, you know that our headline for July 2026 in Bend was like, it was a total snooze fest. Like our phones were not ringing. You know, it was a good time for Sarah and I to do a lot of strategy and planning for the second half of the year, which is great. But it's also like, that's in the middle of peak summer season when usually like tons of people are coming to Bend on vacation and, oh, well, I'm here, I want to go look at a house and all these things. And you know, the article that we'll put in the show notes, it's written by, and it says the housing market suffered from a midsummer slump in July as would-be buyers grappled with high home prices, increasing mortgage rates, and growing financial insecurity. Many Americans simply can't afford today's housing costs, while others are holding off because they're worried about the economy or their job security. But the silver lining, they say, is that buyers who can afford to buy right now, and we are seeing this one with our buyers right now, can negotiate a lot and get some pretty impressive concessions from sellers who are just ready to move on and offload their houses. So you can speak to that, Sarah. Like the last 2 offers we wrote, what were the 7 credits we asked for?
yeah, well, I like to tell buyers that I like to be wrong, right? Like buyers will come to me and say, hey, I actually want to offer this price or ask this many credits. I'm like, I'm happy to do that for you, but anticipate a counter offer. And one of the last homes we got under contract for a buyer over the past couple of weeks was a net 100,000 under asking. It was a $1.1 million home, but we gave them the strategy of hitting a certain purchase price and a certain number of credits that got them pretty darn close to that $1 million point with no counter offer. And it's not very often that I'm wrong with these things, but I'm more than happy to be wrong. And I think it's just really telling lots of different things. It's really telling. I mean, every property is different, obviously, but being in the right place, right time. But I think sellers are seeing A, the time of year, B, these headlines, and just, you know, if they can move on and do what they need to do without, you know, with taking a little bit of a cut, they're going to do it because it might be worse. They might have to wait a lot longer. Yeah. I mean, our market has just been kind of hanging loose. We've just been doing the flat thing year over year, just in terms of we're barely up year over year in actual purchase price. Our days on market are actually a week longer right now in our market. So buyers really are taking that sweet amount of time around here to pick their place and do their negotiating. Everyone's just dragging their feet and waiting longer, really.
Yeah, waiting for the exact perfect place to hit the market. But then what happens is there's a ton of pent-up demand for the perfect place, because believe me, there are buyers with money sitting on the sidelines, unaffected by housing prices, mortgage rates, all the things. Like they are ready and, you know, willing to jump when the right one comes. And this is exactly the dichotomy that we experienced in July of like total crickets. But then we had buyers that wanted to offer on one house and it got 12 offers. Multiple offers were over asking and cash. So who are those people? People that are unaffected by interest rates. They don't care, right? And they're pulling their money out of somewhere, or they just have cash sitting around for whatever reason. So it's just really an interesting market to see both sides of like super quiet, crazy good concessions that buyers are getting from sellers. And then on the flip side, when that one perfect house that everyone is looking for, that's walkable, downtown, turnkey, modern, all the things, right? When it's got all that, everyone is ready to pounce.
Yeah. Pull out all the stops. And that's when it's really helpful to have cash, right? Which, yeah, I mean, and that in our market, we, you know, here in the Central Oregon market, we have on average like 35 to 40% total cash sales, which is a huge number of total cash sales of all of our single family homes here in this market, which is much greater than a lot of markets that we watch and compare it to.
For sure. Yeah. So I just want to get back to the stats, this headline, right? So lowest number of home sales in 2 years. And just, I want to reference what the article says. So certain parts of the country are driving the demand down for home buying. The fastest falling are in Texas, with San Antonio down almost 13% year over year. Dallas and Fort Worth both down about 10%. Detroit down about 9%, and Seattle down 9% as well. And a lot of the Texas decline is because they did so much home building that all of the existing newer homes are competing with brand new homes and all of these different incentives that builders are putting out there. And we find this for our buyers too. Like sometimes they can get a way better deal on a brand new house than they can on a house that's 1 or 2 years old, right, Sarah?
Yeah, new construction is great around here. I mean, you're investing in an immature neighborhood, right? In terms of landscaping, in terms of just having construction around you for a fixed period of time. But you, in most cases, in Central Oregon, depending on the builder, you're walking into some instant equity if you're going to hang on to that house for 2 to 3 years. I love those new construction plays.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah. And then pending home sales, not just like actual home sales, but things that are pending are falling fastest in Seattle, where they declined just about 15.5% year over year. And that's followed by Houston and then Phoenix. So all of the, at least the Houston and Phoenix markets had, pause there. I don't know if I'll pick up this sound. Bring it on your side.
Yeah, I just hit send it to voicemail. So
I do that. I need those people. Okay. Anyways, I was saying, sorry, Claire. So pending home sales are falling fastest in Seattle, down 15.5% year over year. And that's followed by Houston and Phoenix. And, during COVID, we saw a lot of people moving to Phoenix, and that was like a pretty poppin' market, and things were going really well there. And Texas too, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin. And we've all probably heard some of the stats about Austin having declining home prices and home sales as well. So it is very interesting. And also just to note, our neighbor to the north, Seattle, their median home price is not that far off from where we're at in Bend. They're at 810,000, where we're at 780,000. So, and they've got a much more robust job market there. Like, they've got the tech, Boeing and Microsoft and Amazon and all the things, right? Whereas Bend, it's a lifestyle play. So people are coming to Bend who have made their money elsewhere or are making their money elsewhere, and they're choosing to invest it in Bend.
Yeah. I don't know. This article is kind of one of those the sky is falling type articles. And yes, here in Central Oregon, I think Suzanne and I are feeling it personally in our own business. Things for sure with buyers are slower than maybe they ever have been since the time we've been together. But it's really interesting seeing the uptick in sellers that are approaching us to offload their homes. So I don't think the sky is falling here in Bend. Really, the stats tell us otherwise. I see two things. One, again, we are really just relatively flat. If you look at the actual numbers, we're only down 2% year over year in actual price, right? I mean, like, that's pretty common for the time of year we're at. And then yes, number two, like, it is just this seasonal hump. Like, we are really just at that time of year where we're late summer, everybody's still trying to squeeze the rest of the juice out of summer right before kids go back to school. And we're just on that seasonal decline. We'll see another little bump here in September when everybody gets resettled again, but everything's going down until about February again. So I don't know.
Except for interest rates.
Yeah. The buyers that have got to buy are watching slowly and closely. And yeah, as always, just waiting for the right place and the right deal. But people are not moving as quickly or being as aggressive as they have been in the past.
Yep. Exactly. So yeah, just wanted to give you these headlines. And then one thing to note is that closed home sales rose the most in West Palm Beach, Sarah's home state of Florida, Francisco, Milwaukee, and Milwaukee was driven by affordability because those homes are, in the $100,000 and $200,000 range. So there are some bright spots for sure in the real estate market, and it's driven by different things, right? So we talked about San Francisco with the AI boom, and then West Palm Beach. Don't totally know what's going on there, but we know a lot of people retire to lovely places like that for many reasons, like weather and taxes. And speaking of taxes, Sarah, we have an upcoming meetup event. So it's next week. It is August 27th from noon to 1 p.m. Pacific time. And we will be online and in person at our CPA's office in Bend. If you want to join us in real life, come check it out. We will be talking about some advanced tax efficient strategies is what he calls them. So we'll talk about bonus depreciation, the STR loophole, cost segregation, all these things that are these buzzwords right now, right? And like, we've done a whole meetup on that. If you want to catch the replay, check it out in our playlist for replays. But this is going beyond those topics into things that you can invest in to reduce your tax liability and make passive income on them. So it's a really interesting discussion. So Sarah and I have already met with our CPA about some of these options, and yeah, they're super interesting and like out of the box.
Yeah, it's one you're going to want to be there for. Like Suzanne said, we're all about bonus depreciation and helping people get into actual real estate in order to be proactive about tax savings. But maybe you don't want to buy another house this year, and maybe you want to consider another option. So we've got them for you. Third Thursday of every single month, we're doing a meetup online, sometimes in person, noon to 1 Pacific time.
Yes, but this month, I think it's actually the fourth Thursday. We figure it out around our schedules and our guest speaker schedules. But yeah, for the most part, we are meeting on the third Thursday this month. It will be on the fourth Thursday on August 27th from noon to 1 p.m. Pacific time. So join us then. And if you want to hear more about what we're reading about the real estate market, both in Bend, what we're feeling in Bend, and then what we're seeing in the broader, more macro real estate market, stay tuned to the Real Deal podcast, and we will share our candid take and some predictions with you every other week.
Sounds like fun. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Real Deal podcast. And we will certainly see or have you listen to us on the next one. See you guys later. Bye.
Bye.